Hello, Loftsiders, and welcome back to Loftside Banter for this episode. This episode, we will be talking about week 2 in the NFL. We'll take a look at a few college games and everything else like that. We'll look at some other headlines within sports as we're getting close to really getting into the NBA season. We're getting close to a Major League Baseball playoff time. Just all around, it's just once you get into kind of football season, that kind of takes the forefront. I mean, if somebody has a difference of opinion with that, let me know. But I tend to find that football season takes over. You know, you get to the end of Major League Baseball with it being September. You get to the playoffs, then you start to see that compete with some of the NFL games and everything else like that. But that's really when you only have something that's, and then you get to start to the NBA season. So once you kind of blend into that era of the year, I say era, that time of the year, that's when you get kind of all those magical things. Some great playoff baseball, the very beginning of basketball season, which the Eastern Conference this year, we don't know what to expect simply because of all the injuries that have gone around. Obviously, Tatum's out. Obviously, Lillard's gone. He's obviously back with the Blazers right now, but the Bucks are a little different. Indiana doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton, so a lot of stuff's going to happen with that. And the early part of the season is going to be interesting. So we'll see. But let's start with week 2. Let's start with the game on Thursday night. The game on Thursday night was the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Commanders. An exciting game that I watched. Let's try this again. What do you say? Let's try it again. Thursday night, I watched the game because Green Bay has this aura of around them right now. They picked up Micah Parsons right before the beginning of the season for 2 first-round picks and a defensive tackle who the Cowboys seemed to think was going to still make their defense good, and he still could, don't get me wrong. But they have looked really good in the first 2 games. I think they've essentially given up 18. They've given up 26 total points, I think, in the first 2 games. So the defense is just giving up 13 points a game. The Commanders got 18 points. It was 27-18 was the final. The Packers moved to 2-0. They're 2-0 at home. They've had both games at home. The Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels look like a team that is good, not great quite yet. They lost Austin Eckler for the year. So now you're coming down to, I think they ran the ball 19 total times, 7 of which was Jaden Daniels. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was their 7th round pick, and I believe he's out of Arizona, that they really liked. And now he's going to have to, carry the load of the run game for the Washington Commanders going forward. Zach Ertz was the only one really. Debo had a decent game. Same thing with Zach Ertz. I mean, Jaden Daniels didn't play bad. 24, 42, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, that's only about 5 yards per reception, right? So he wasn't getting the ball downfield. Jordan Love, 19 of 31, 292 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs, 23 carries, 84 yards, a touchdown. Tucker Kraft, 6 catches, 124 yards. This team looks the part. Now, can they come back down to earth? Sure, the Packers can absolutely come back to earth. Jordan Love still doesn't scream top-tier quarterback in my eyes yet. But he's been in the league for a while. I'm going to take a look right now. He's 26. He was drafted in 2020, so he's 5-6-year veteran. He has 480 yards passing this year, 4 touchdowns, no picks so far. Again, one of those guys that seem to come along pretty slow. And I mentioned this in the last episode. The development of players seems to go slower now that we don't have all these practices and everything else like that. I think it's a detriment to some of the talent we have in this league. But Jordan Love is crawling up that leaderboard as far as quarterbacks in the NFL. He's looked good. Edgerrin Cooper has looked great on that defense. I'm trying to see if we can see Micah Parsons. He had a half sack. They had 4 total sacks of Jaden Daniels in this game. So the Packers look like they're the best in the NFC, if not the best in the league right now. And again, I think there's still time for them to come back down to earth. The Lions are not going to go quietly, at least that I think. I think the Bears can play better. But and then we don't know what to expect really from the Vikings all that much right now. So it's a tough division that they're in, but they've looked really good, especially at home for these first 2 games. Looking ahead to week 2 for the preview. So as I look at all the games going across the top here of ESPN, they always put the Patriots first because it's my team. I've labeled that on ESPN as my team. So we're going to start with that. Tua has a perfect record against the Patriots, as the Dolphins will host the Patriots in Miami at 1 o'clock. As of right now, the Dolphins are a 1.5 favorite. That's the home field advantage that you normally see. Tua was 14 of 23 for 114 yards. And the last game did not look good. Miami didn't look good. And now Miami, as far as a team, have had issues with Tyreek Hill, getting him the ball, being productive, keeping Tua healthy, all those things. Tyreek Hill is also in a bad spot in his personal life. The Dolphins said this week they have no plans to trade him, and they haven't received any calls for a trade for Tyreek Hill. He pulled himself from the finale last year. He has never really requested a trade, but he's also in trouble with his ex-wife or current wife they're going through a divorce or whatever. He owes more money than God at this point to her. It's one of those things that it's going to weigh on him. It's absolutely going to weigh on him throughout all of this. It's a domestic abuse allegation, which is not good to have even hanging over your head. Now, we have to go with the fact that he is innocent until proven guilty. That is what this country stands on, and that's not how the court of public opinion ever really does it. So, with that said, there are distractions in this Miami locker room. This seems like a get-right game for the Dolphins. And what I mean by that is they are immensely talented with a lot of the players they have on their roster. They only scored 8 points against the Colts, which I don't think, at least on paper, looked anywhere as good as some of the talent the Patriots have. Now, the Patriots lost 20-13 to the Raiders. The Raiders and the Patriots seem like they're in the same boat. They seem very similar as far as talent level and everything else like that. They made pretty much a lot of the same mistakes as each other during the game and everything else like that. So, I mean, I think this is legitimately a coin toss. I mean, they have the matchup predictor on here. It's 52.9% for the Dolphins, 46.7% for the Patriots. Again, Patriots don't normally play really well in Miami. They haven't particularly played well against Miami with Tua as the quarterback, obviously, as I read at the very beginning. There are some injuries that are big for the Patriots. Christian Gonzalez is out. Keon White is out. Marte Mapu and Morgan Moses were both questionable. Moses did practice yesterday. There's been different moves. Storm Duck is out. Great name for the Miami Dolphins. Austin Jackson out right now. He's on IR and expected to return, but not, obviously, for a little while. This game is going to come down to who makes less mistakes. It's realistically, it's going to boil down. And I realize it's not really hard-hitting analysis, but the Patriots and the Dolphins seem to be in similar spots right now, which is surprising. And I'd rather be the Patriots because you're younger. You have a lot more cap room coming out of this than the Dolphins do. The Dolphins are going to have to shed a ton of salary at the end of the year. And with Tyreek Hill making as much as he is, Tua making as much as he is, some of the other players on this team making as much as they are, you're in a tough spot as the Dolphins if you're not productive. And again, I think the honeymoon is over for Mike McDaniel. I think he's done at the end of the year, if he makes it through the year. But I think, and you're going to get sick of me saying, but I think the Patriots pull this one out. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. So that's what I think for this game. It's tough to pick against the Patriots for me because I always want to do it with my heart. My head says they're probably going to struggle. And again, they're probably going to be a couple wins better than they were last year. Obviously, going up against the Raiders, I had higher hopes. A lot of mistakes, different things like that. But this team, I think, has the ability to grow into a pretty decent football team at the end of this year, instead of kind of backtracking from where they started last year to the end of last year. Next 1 o'clock game, we have the Rams. The Los Angeles Rams will be traveling to Tennessee to play the Tennessee Titans. Rams are I say, heavy favorites, 5.5-point favorites. Cam Ward is still looking for his first win as they have their home opener. Now, Cam Ward was 12 of 28 for 112 yards last game. Not the greatest of first games. Matthew Stafford, who hadn't been in the preseason, all preseason, obviously, 21 of 29 for a touchdown, 249 yards. Still looks like Matthew Stafford. Probably has lost a little bit, but Tony Pollard, 60 yards his first game, and Puka Nacua, 10 receptions for 130 yards. So again, still great wide receiver there. There's just too many weapons on the Rams. There's a few injuries here or there, but J.C. Latham is out. T'Vondre Sweat is out with an ankle injury. Taj Spears, the backup running back, is out for Tennessee. So, I think Tennessee's finishes at the bottom of the AFC South, but I think the Rams come and take this, and I think they probably cover the spread, win by a touchdown or more. So, that's what they have there. Next is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-0 after beating the Panthers last week, traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bengals, who struggled against Cleveland, winning 17-16. Not something that's a whole lot of confidence in that Bengals team. They are loaded on offense, and they scored 17 points against the Browns. And again, the Browns, I think they'll show up, they'll fight, they'll do all those different things against good teams, but man, oh man, 17-16 for the Bengals is not a good enough win. They are 3.5-point favorites at home. Joe Burrow is looking to get out of the pocket more, and not just kind of stand there as a statue. He wants to be able to move the ball and everything else like that. Something we heard from the end of last game to now. That's what he's looking to do. But Trevor Lawrence threw for more yards. Joe Burrow was 14 of 23 for 113 yards. Again, that's not a Joe Burrow type game. Chase Brown didn't run the ball really effectively. So there's some stuff that they still need to work on offensively. But I think they also win this game at home against Jacksonville. And for the next game on the docket, it will be the Baltimore Ravens at home against the Cleveland Browns. So we all know what happened last week with the Baltimore Ravens. They blew a lead to the Buffalo Bills, lost 41-40 in probably going to be one of the better games this year that you see. So now they're 12.5-point favorites over the Cleveland Browns at home. So they're, I believe it's their home opener. I believe it was in Buffalo last Sunday night game. This one's at 1 o'clock tomorrow. It's going to be. You've used the term "get right" game, and I'll use it again for another game. But this one is, and not that there was really anything wrong with the Ravens, other than the fact that they blew a lead. So I don't think this is going to be anywhere close. First and foremost, I think this game will probably. I almost expect them to cover at 12.5 to win by 2 touchdowns or more. I almost think that that's probably a real possibility. They have about an 80% chance, according to ESPN, to win this game. Lamar Jackson only threw the ball 19 times last game, which was strange. Joe Flacco, obviously, is the starter, started his career in the Ravens organization, has come back a couple of times with the Browns and has played pretty well. But I just don't foresee this being anywhere close. The Cleveland Browns are just at a point where, you know what, there's no real expectation here. Quinshon Judkins has been activated for this, so their second-round pick out of Ohio State. The running back, gone through some off-the-field, issues this offseason. Obviously didn't sign up until right before week 1. So is very behind the 8 ball. And I'm not necessarily sitting here saying that he's going to be the weapon that changes everything, because I don't think that's the case. I just think that we're at a point that they'll use anything to get any sort of excitement. And I don't even think this is going to be something that causes that much of excitement. Patrick Ricard and Isaiah Likely are both out for the Ravens, so they're starting fullback and starting tight end. Again, I don't think it moves the needle all that much. You still have Mark Andrews. You're still going to have Derrick Henry, who is a running back and fullback built into one human being. So I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. So I think the Ravens take this one fairly easily. And then we move on to the Jets, who are at home. They're 0-1 at home. They obviously lost to the Steelers last week with that homecoming with Aaron Rodgers against Justin Fields. But they play the Buffalo Bills. And again, I think the Buffalo Bills are probably going to be, they're in line to be the best team in the AFC. They've obviously beaten the Ravens. Now, I think the Bills are due for a couple of losses, bad losses at some point. They always go through a fun. I'd rather see them get it out of the way in the regular season and be really, really in tune for the playoffs. But they're looking to improve to 2-0. Josh Allen, again, 394 yards, looked fantastic in the fourth quarter of Sunday Night Football last week. Justin Fields didn't play bad. The Jets as a whole didn't play bad. They were actually in line to be in first place if Buffalo had lost, because they would have had the best point differential, which was -2 in the AFC East. But, I mean, Justin Fields threw the ball really well. They've looked better. I know some Jet fans are a little bit more excited than they were at the beginning of the year, because Justin Fields has shown that he can throw the ball, has shown that he can move the ball with his feet, obviously throughout his career. Still 26 years old. I've mentioned that a couple of times. I just still think there's time for him to really fit in a system. Now, I think he's also a placeholder right now for the Jets. I think the Jets, if they play poorly, obviously throughout the season, and get a high draft pick, they're going to draft a quarterback. But I think Justin Fields he still has time for all this to work out. I just don't want it to work out for the Jets as a Patriots fan. I don't think that's really out of the realm of anything spectacular or anything else like that. I think that's pretty a norm thing for me to say as a Patriots fan. But no real huge injuries that I can see for right now. I think Ed Oliver is going to be out for the game, the starting defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, which means Breece Hall gets a little bit more room to run. 19 carries, 107 yards last week. So, maybe his form has come back a little bit. But the Bills are 7.5-point favorites. I think they probably win by more than 10. in this game. Moving on to, we're moving on to the most difficult game to watch this weekend. And it's going to pain me as part of it because it involves the Saints, which everybody at this point should understand is they're going to have a difficult year. And the reason why I say this is a little difficult of a game to watch is because they're playing the San Francisco 49ers. And you may be sitting there going, well, San Francisco, they have this, they have that, they have some exciting players. Brock Purdy's out, which means Mac Jones is the starting quarterback. Through the last few years of his Patriots tenure to the time he had to play last year for Jacksonville when Trevor Lawrence was out, Mac Jones has looked awful. And almost every time he takes a snap, it's an adventure with him. And there were rumors coming out from the Patriots. Somebody reported that Bill Belichick wanted to keep Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator, and Robert Kraft said no. But they had to change and get a different offensive coordinator. Then there was rumors that Mac Jones wasn't taking the teachings or wasn't whatever from Bill Belichick, and that Bill Belichick just stopped talking to him. And then they stopped coaching him. And then they named Gerard Mayo the coach in waiting, and that Bill Belichick stopped talking to him. And he was the defensive coordinator, de facto defensive coordinator that year. This is back in 2023. So there was a lot of mess. And do I believe that Mac Jones was stopped being coached at that point in time, and that's where the regression kind of came from? No, because I think he started regressing before that. And I don't know if it's that he wasn't accepting coaching or Bill Belichick stopped coaching him or whatever the reason is. Mac Jones has not been a good NFL quarterback. And I say that from a Patriots fan point of view to also seeing it in a different franchise. Seeing it last year with Jacksonville, seeing that he struggled there. San Francisco's still 7.5-point favorites, and who knows what can happen in this game. You still have Christian McCaffrey. Ricky Pearsall looked great in the debut. You still have offensive weapons that can get you up and down the field, but I think you're going to be leaning on Christian McCaffrey. I think you're going to be leaning on the defense to hold. Again, not a great Saints offense. They scored 13 points in their loss to the Cardinals last week. Spencer Rattler, 27 of 46, 214 yards. He's in a difficult spot. He's the best of a bad group. And it's obvious that they're really probably going to get the number 1 overall pick. And that they're going to use it on a quarterback, whoever that is. At least from this point of view, it's not going to be Arch Manning next year. He hasn't looked good in the games that he's started this year in college for Texas. I think Arch Manning will be fine, but he hasn't looked good. So whoever they're thinking that they're going to get or thinking that they can make a move for or whatever the case may be for the Saints, they may grow and may get better throughout the season. They still have Alvin Kamara. They still have Juwan Johnson, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis. They have pieces. It's just they're just not. They just traded for Jalen Polk. Not that that's going to do him any good this year, as he's out for the rest of the year from the Patriots for, a bag of balls or whatever it is, whatever you want to say. So they're trying to get young players in here that have high upside, because Jalen Polk still has upside. He just unfortunately wasn't great for a bad team last year. Now Mike Vrabel wants to move on and do different things, but the Saints end up picking him up. I think the 49ers still get the win because they still have better players overall. And I think the defense is really going to wreak some havoc on the Saints offense. So that's what we'll go with that. We'll move on to the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites. I think they cover that, especially with the fact that Russell Wilson is starting again. Russell Wilson is past it. I don't think anybody's really going to disagree with that. Maybe Russell Wilson will disagree with that, but he's past it. I think you're going to see Jackson Dart earlier than what probably the Giants are comfortable with, but Brian Daboll has to do something to save his job. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys looked decent against the Eagles last week. Only lost by 4, kept it a very close game. Have pieces in place. Dak stays healthy. The Cowboys look all right. CeeDee Lamb stays healthy. Javonte Williams scored 2 touchdowns. You really don't need him to do more other than the fact give you a red zone running game. I mean, if you're expecting him to come out and run 100 yards every single week, you're in trouble. If you can get him to get you decent yardage on first down, second down maybe, and then in the red zone give you a viable option to get into the end zone, that's all you need him for at this point. Injuries. Deron Bland is out. He was the starting quarterback for the Cowboys that got that big deal, a big extension during the week or during middle of last week maybe. So he's out. Again, I don't think it turns the tides, anything moves the needle, as I've said a couple of times. But I think the Cowboys cover. And not only do they cover, I think they're probably going to win by more than a touchdown. It's just what I think at this point. A couple more 1 o'clock games. The Bears go on the road to face the Detroit Lions. This is a get-right game for the Lions, and the Bears are probably the right team to have this. And Bears fans are looking at this after a late Monday Night Football game, short week for them, where Caleb Williams, again, there are questions of whether he's the guy for the Chicago Bears. 21 of 35, 1 touchdown, 210 yards. No mistakes as far as interceptions were concerned, but he was very inaccurate. And you could hear Troy Aikman during Monday Night Football basically making the argument like he's not close, he's not this, he's not reading the field, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. So Caleb has the pieces in place now. Ben Johnson is their offensive guy, and now we're talking 1 week in, and again, overreaction after the first week. We all know this. But the thing that we as fans can see is that there's been no improvement, at least yet. No improvement from Caleb Williams. So out of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May so far, Jaden Daniels is by far the best prospect. By far. They're not even in the same stadium, same stratosphere right now. The thing with May is you're seeing little tidbits of improvement throughout last year, even in week 1. With all these different things, you haven't seen Caleb Williams improve all that much. The bad passes last week, I think he led the league with how many passes were I forget the official stat, but it was how many passes were not within a certain radius of his wide receivers or considered on target. And it was like 30% of them. So 1 out of every 3 passes he threw, so 35 passes, basically 11 of those passes were essentially not on target. So, I mean, he led 6 carries, 58 yards. Again, if you're hoping that he wins games with his legs, in trouble. Let's see, a couple of guys out for the Bears. Nobody really no Xavier Carlton out for a little while. Taylor Decker, I believe, is probably going to be out. He's questionable right now. Maybe he is going to play. And then the other one is Kirby Joseph, the safety. Two bigger names there for the Lions. But again, Lions are 5.5-point favorites. Probably win by more than a touchdown. They're probably pissed off after week one and the performance they put in against the Packers, who look like they have passed them for the division as of right now. So, this team, I think the Lions probably come out and probably more than a touchdown. Again, the Bears, I hope they improve throughout the year. The Chicago Bears are a franchise that a lot of fans, even if you're not a fan of, tend to root for, except for those teams in the division and stuff like that, because they've been around. George Halas and all of this history that he put in for the NFL to be what it is today. It's difficult to watch them struggle over and over and over and over again, and then not find the right pieces, even with the number one overall pick. The trade that they had made to get that pick from the Panthers, everyone thought that they had to steal, and now we're at a point where who knows what's going to happen with Caleb Williams. Because I think if he's not the guy this year, Ben Johnson's going to want to move on from him immediately and get a guy that he wants. Last 1 o'clock game, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who are 0-1, going on the road to face Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Again, probably just the line for home field advantage. The Steelers obviously looked pretty good. Running the football, they didn't look really good. Aaron Rodgers looked decent, throwing 4 touchdown passes last week against the Jets. So I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. This is a DK Metcalf kind of playing his old team week 2 storyline. I'm not scared of the Steelers. And I go see them play the Patriots next week. And I could be, very, very wrong when it comes to that. Again, I don't think the Patriots are on the same level as them, talent-wise. But Pittsburgh doesn't scare me. Pittsburgh, to me, is in the same position they've been for the last 3 or 4 years, which is get to the first round of the playoffs and lose. That's, I think, their ceiling. And again, Aaron Rodgers is to a point where I don't think he's the same quarterback by any means. He'll have good games against bad teams. He obviously looked really bad with the Jets last year. Didn't get any time with the Jets the year before. So it's just Jalen Warren needs to run better. DK Metcalf had a good game. Defense looks all right. Jalen Ramsey looked okay. He looked good. Week 1. A little bit more talented of a team coming in this week. Sam Darnold, again, are we going to see Sam Darnold when he was with the Jets? It's what he kind of looked like week 1. Or are we going to see the Vikings, first half of the year Vikings quarterback? You got to be specific with Sam Darnold. Injury-wise, again, Devon Witherspoon, doubtful with a knee injury. It looked like he was going to be back this week, but he's doubtful right now. He's their high draft pick starting cornerback. Helps out Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers are going to not have Joey Porter Jr. They're not going to have Malik Harrison, and they're not going to have Derek Harmon, their first-round pick. Deshaun Elliott is also out with an MCL injury. He was their starting safety. They went out and got Jabril Peppers. Again, a move that I don't think is a bad move. Gives them veteran leadership. Jabril Peppers still has some stuff left in the tank. And then week 3, when they play the Patriots, he'll have all the, behind-the-scenes stuff. So it's a great move for the Steelers there. I think the Steelers cover this one at home. I think touchdown. They win by touchdown. 4 o'clock games. Denver Broncos 1-0 go on the road to face the surprising Indianapolis Colts in Daniel Jones. The Denver Broncos are 2.5-point favorites. This is a really good defense. So I think this is where you probably see Daniel Jones be Daniel Jones that we're used to. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be a bad thing just because I think he'll play better this year. I do. We've seen what he can do, 22 of 29, 272 yards. He looked good with an offensive line that could keep him upright. This is just a really good defense. Bo Nix, I mentioned in the last show, maybe we're going through a sophomore slump, but 25 of 40, touchdown, 2 interceptions, wasn't seeing the field very well. 176 yards and 25 completions wasn't great. RJ Harvey, their second-round pick, probably going to take over the starting role as a running back. 6 carries, 70 yards. I mean, over 10 yards a carry. But this defense, they are going to be without Dre Greenlaw, linebacker. They're going to be without. It looks like Drew Sanders is still out. Nate Atkins is still out. On the Colts side, a couple of questionables. But again, nothing that I think changes the outcome of the game, more or less. I think the Broncos win. I think the Broncos win by probably more than a touchdown. I think Daniel Jones is going to struggle a little bit this week. But I think he looked really good last week. So I can see where we would see the improvement or see the real Daniel Jones at this point in his career. With Indianapolis. Another 4:00 game. Panthers travel to Arizona to play the Cardinals. Carolina Panthers playing the Arizona Cardinals, 4:00. I don't know what to make of Bryce Young. Bryce Young, as I've mentioned in a couple of episodes, looked really good at the end of last year. Brought a lot of hope to the Panthers. Now he's solidified being the starter this year. He may be benched at some point if he plays like he did kind of last week. Carolina lost 26-10 to the Jaguars. So, again, not a great team to lose to. And to only score 10 points didn't look great. Cardinals won 20-13 over the Saints. Again, I thought they would win by more. They're 6.5-point favorites over the Panthers. I think this one's going to be a little bit closer. I think Bryce Young bounces back a little bit, plays a little bit better. The Cardinals look like, they're probably going to win this game just simply because the Panthers can't get out of their own way most of the time. And then if Bryce Young is going to struggle, he's going to struggle. But I think he plays better this game. I think it probably is one of those closer games, probably a 7-point game, 3-point game. I'll say the Cardinals at home. And again, I'm not huge on the Cardinals. I've mentioned that quite a few times. The top billing for 4:00 games will be the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Kansas City to play the Chiefs, a Super Bowl rematch. It's a 52% to 47% that they have the Chiefs as winning. I think the Eagles probably win this game. I'm not sold on the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have kind of regressed to a point of their games are going to be a lot closer than we expect. Now, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Those things, I could be absolutely wrong with that. When you have Patrick Mahomes, when you have Travis Kelce, when you have Chris Jones, players like that, you can make things happen. I just don't think they're blowing out the Eagles. The Eagles' defense didn't look overly great in the first half against the Cowboys. They've had extra rest coming from a Thursday night game to now Sunday at 4. Jalen Hurts needs to play a little bit better. Ran the ball fairly well, ran for 2 touchdowns. 19 of 23, 152 yards. He's got to throw the ball better, get it down the field better. Get A.J. Brown involved. A.J. Brown was almost not involved in the last game. Had 1 reception for like 8 yards, whatever it was. People mention that there's turmoil or there's tension between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Whatever. You're professionals. Get over it. Figure it out. The way you're going to win these games is by getting him involved. I don't think I'm saying something so outrageous. I don't think I'm saying something that's like, oh, no expert's ever going to say that or going to look at that and be like, A.J. Brown, you got to get him involved. Well, why would that make him win? I think everybody understands that A.J. Brown is the best weapon you have as a wide receiver. Devontae Smith is great. Jawan Dotson, take him or leave him, whatever. But as of right now, I mean, that's the thing that the Eagles got to figure out is how to get that connection working again. Will Shipley will be out. Dallas Goedert will be out. Cameron Williams is out. Xavier Worthy for the Chiefs is out. Jalen Royals is out. Almost nobody to catch the ball other than Travis Kelce. He's on my fantasy team, so he better, catch another touchdown at the very least. I think the Eagles are 1.5 favorite on the road. I think you take that all day long. I think the Eagles are going to win this game by far more than 1.5 to 2 points. Sunday night game. The Atlanta Falcons will travel to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Falcons are 0-1. They lost to, I can't even remember who they played now. To the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers came back and again had Baker Mayfield play a 2-minute offense to look phenomenal. Every other point of the game looked awful. Anyway, Atlanta Falcons, Minnesota Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. J.J. McCarthy would mess up, would bounce back, and would play really well. Did enough to help the Vikings win over the Bears. Again, the Bears didn't look great offensively, but I think J.J. McCarthy really benefited from being out all last year. Understood what it took to keep plugging away, even after mistakes, even after stuff like that. Jordan Mason ended up being the leading rusher for them, so now is it Alex Jones or is it Jordan Mason? Is it a little bit of both? But Alex Jones, 3 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. So, did great catching the ball out of the backfield. Michael Penix didn't look terrible either. No real run game. Bijan Robinson didn't do very well. Tyler Algier ended up being the leading rusher, averaging 2.5 yards per carry. So, again, not great with the rushing offense for the Falcons. The bigger injuries here, the bigger things here are the injuries for the Vikings on defense. Christian Darrisaw, he's an offensive tackle. He's out. Jeff Okudah, cornerback, out. Andrew Van Ginkel, starting linebacker, out. So, I mean, they're missing some major pieces on that defense. They have Harrison Smith, who's questionable. He's sick. They have Austin Keys, who's questionable with an injury. Another linebacker. Again, they have some pieces that are going to be missing this weekend. Jordan Fuller is out. Young Ho Koo, the the kicker, is out. It says coach's decision, which is interesting to me. He didn't travel with the team and won't play in Sunday's game versus the Vikings. There's no other real information provided to that. And again, I don't know who the backup kicker is for the Atlanta Falcons. Parker Romo, who spent training camp with the Patriots, lost the gig to Andrew Borealis, and now he's an Atlanta Falcon. He didn't miss when he played last year. So again, this is something that, but from what I'm reading right here, at least an hour ago, they're benching him. They're benching Koo for missing that field goal. Whether that means that he's done for and Parker Romo is going to take over, which if that's the case, I wouldn't mind the Patriots picking up Koo to compete with Andrew Borealis, who's a rookie. Anyway, we're getting back to the Patriots. I don't want to do that to you guys. 3.5-point favorites for the Minnesota Vikings. Depending on the injuries on defense, I think this is probably a win for the Vikings as well. And then we go over to the first Monday night game, which is the Buccaneers against the Houston Texans in Houston. The Houston Texans are a 1.5 favorite. C.J. Stroud, again, didn't look great coming off of a sophomore slump type of season. And again, not a poor season, but just not a C.J. Stroud season. Not what we saw his rookie season. So The question I had asked at the beginning of the year is, can C.J. Stroud bounce back from that? And week 1 did not show that. And that may be one of those mentality things where you just can't get out of your own way. You can't stop making mistakes, overthinking things, whatever. We see it 100 times with athletes. There are athletes that could be in certain situations and they cannot do anything right. They go somewhere else. They do better. They stay the same. Mac Jones couldn't get out of his own way. Went to Jacksonville, still couldn't get out of his own way. I don't expect it to be any different in San Francisco. I don't think the Houston Texans should be favored in this game. They're only favored by 1.5. That's the home field advantage that you get. I think the Buccaneers win this game. I would take the dog in this game. I still believe in Baker Mayfield. I still think he looks all right. Has to put it all together for 48 minutes of a game or however many minutes or whatever, 60 minutes, whatever it is. They need to have a better rushing attack. Bucky Irving has to do better. They have great wide receivers in Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka. And again, played really well week 1. I don't want to put him in the great category quite yet. Chris Godwin obviously isn't available until a little bit later in the season. Tristan Wirfs is still out, so the left tackle that they really need. Jake Andrews is out. Braxton Berrios is out. Christian Kirk is out. Cade Stover went to IR. D'Amico Autry is on the PUP list. They're missing a ton of pieces in Houston as well. So I think the Buccaneers take this game on the road Monday night at 7 o'clock. And then there's a second Monday night game this week. You have the Chargers, who are 1-0, going to the Raiders, who are also 1-0. So Los Angeles Chargers going to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorites on the road. I agree with that. Justin Herbert looked phenomenal week 1 against the Chiefs. Amari Hampton, their first-round draft pick, needs to play a little bit better. Geno Smith looked like a great quarterback against that Patriots defense, 362 yards, 24-34. Ashton Genty didn't really play all that great, did get a touchdown. Brock Bowers looked like he was just open at all points in time. He's questionable for this week. Let's see who else. Brock Bowers is questionable with a knee injury. I think they're going to leave him out since it's only the second week of the season, and we're talking about a knee injury. Michael Mayer is the backup. Played again. He looked pretty well once Bowers went out of the game. Pete Carroll says Bowers is expected to play. We'll see. But Jackson Powers Johnson, their starting center, is out, and that's really the bigger injuries there. Elijah Molden is out for the Chargers. Cornerback Denzel Perryman is out, starting linebacker. So a couple of defensive injuries, but again, we're talking about Geno Smith, who looked good against a bad defense, or what looked like a bad defense. I'm hoping I can't call their defense bad at this point, week 2 in. Anyway, I think the Chargers win and cover. But that's what we have for week 2 here for the NFL games. Again, really good games, really good kind of things. The Cowboys and their starting offensive left tackle, Tyler Smith. He's a starting guard. He becomes the highest paid interior lineman ever in the history of the NFL, signing a 4-year, $96 million extension. Good for him. Georgia and Tennessee right now, number 6 Georgia and numbers 15 Tennessee are playing right now. 38-38, they're going to go in overtime. I like overtime in college football where you get the ball the 20, 25-yard line, whatever it is, and then you have, a couple of plays to get in the end zone. After double overtime, you have to go for 2. It creates that excitement to all those different things. Some other news that we'll see, Commanders running back Austin Eckler out for the year with an Achilles injury. Let's take a look at the scoreboard for college football. Full scoreboard. Let's take a look at the top 25 while we're here. Ohio State just started against Ohio. Penn State 52-6 over Villanova. Oregon, number 4, Oregon, 34-14 over Northwestern. Georgia Tech on a last-second field goal beats Clemson, sends Clemson to 1-2 and 0-1 in the ACC. So we may see where Clemson has now fallen off that top-tier team. And again, I think they've probably been teetering the last couple of years. Oklahoma beat Temple. Alabama looked really good against Wisconsin, winning 38-14. Michigan, with their interim head coach, who did wear sleeves today, 63-3 over Central Michigan. Again, not a surprising outcome there. Auburn 3-0, beating Southern Alabama 31-15, and Missouri 52-10 over Louisiana. So that's your college football kind of update right now. If I go and take a look at Major League Baseball, the Tigers, Tarek Skubal looked like he left the game injured. They say everything's okay. Again, probably the front runner for the Cy Young. The Yankees beat the Red Sox today 5-3. That's the second win in a row for them. And I believe they're 2.5 games up now on the Red Sox for second place in the AL East. The Blue Jays still hold first. What else we got? Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo is retiring, and he just went to the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley Field and celebrated with them there during a retirement ceremony. Judge slugged his 362nd home run to pass Joe DiMaggio, which is he's done it fairly quickly. Actually, very, very quickly. I shouldn't say fairly quickly. Very quickly. Taking a look at some standings here. Yes, so the Red Sox are 5 games out of first place. The Yankees are 3.5, so game and a half out. Tigers still hold first place in the AL Central. The Seattle Mariners have now tied the Houston Astros for first place in the West. The National League, we have the Phillies 12 games up on the Mets. Mets have lost that division at this point in time. The Milwaukee Brewers are 6 games up. They went on a tear right after the All-Star break. They've played very, very well. They're only 5-5 in the last 10 games, but so are the Cubs, who are in second place. The Dodgers are 2.5 games up over the Padres. They were tied not too long ago. So, wild card standings. The Yankees are 3 games up, and the Red Sox are only half game up on the Houston Astros. So the Red Sox are dangerous of dropping out of the wild card as well. And again, we've been up and down with this team all year. Injuries right now, and again, I'm not using that as an excuse for the Red Sox, but Roman Anthony's out. Their bullpen's kind of gotten a little bit banged up, but they've lost 3 in a row. National League, you have the Cubs that are 8.5 games up and the Padres that are 4.5 games up. The next closest teams are the San Francisco Giants and the New York Mets. So I think those teams are pretty secure in that area of being the wild card teams. But that's your baseball kind of update. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on today for this show was, again, some people seem to forget the fact that athletes and everything else, professionals and everything else, as I lean back and comfortably in my chair like I'm going to say something profound, I don't think I'm going to say anything profound. I think this is fairly easy to understand. We saw during the Buffalo game against the Ravens a fan wearing Buffalo gear reach over after the Ravens had scored a touchdown and push one of the wide receivers. I can't remember which one. He pushes their helmet away, and not in a vicious way, but shoves them a little bit away. Lamar Jackson was the person right behind him, and the fan did the same thing to Lamar Jackson, which then Lamar Jackson reacted and pushed the fan, and again, not viciously, but enough to get, hey, don't put your hands on me. Lamar Jackson came out and apologized and said, hey, man, sorry for that, but, keep your hands to yourself. The fact that this athlete has to say this in an interview, that, hey, keep your hands to yourself, is something you learn in first grade. I mean, probably younger than that, right? Don't put your hands on other people. We're at a point where there's a lot of things scary in this world, and we've seen it through the news over the last couple of days, and I'm not going to get into that. This is a sports podcast. But the fact that we still haven't learned as a collective group to keep your hands to yourself, athletes or people walking down the street or whatever the case may be, is kind of pathetic as far as us as human beings. And nobody's perfect. I understand that. I understand nobody's perfect. But, if we can't all understand the first basic rule of we're here to watch these guys perform, men, women, athletes in general, to perform all these great feats that we can cheer about, and we can build a camaraderie with people and everything else there. We can hate the same teams. We can enjoy cheering for the same teams, whatever. But we still haven't figured out that we just need to not touch the athletes. And there are different things that happen. There's the Lambeau Leap for the Packers. Again, a home game for the Packers, all that stuff. We've seen opponents do it because they've said strictly, hey, we just want to do a Lambeau Leap. And, we've seen popcorn thrown at people. We've seen drinks thrown. We've seen bottles thrown on fields before. All this different stuff. But we seem to have just completely still forgotten all this. People will look at it and go, well, I pay the money. I should be able to cheer and be able to do that. It doesn't give you the right to touch somebody. It doesn't give you the right to throw something at somebody and all that different stuff. We've seen what can happen when athletes snap, as, the Malice in the Palace. And we've seen clips of Terry O'Reilly for the Bruins going over the glass at somebody with his own shoe and stuff like that. Let's just enjoy the games. Yes, you want your team to win. Every week, you want your team to win. You want to get in an opponent's head. You want to boo them. You want everything else. Have at it. But don't think that you are bigger or better than that person on the field. The fact that I'm still having to sit here and say this again, when I've said what the expectations of fans should be in a previous episode, you should go listen to it at loftsidebanter.com. Or Loftside Bantr at YouTube or Podbean, wherever podcasts are. Again, I'm not saying profound information to people. I'm not saying something that's going to hit somebody and go, oh my God, you're right. You should know this. And I'm sick of seeing it. I'm sick of it leading headlines. I'm sick of it taking time on the ESPN scroll. I'm sick of all of that. Go to the game, enjoy the game, have some fun. A lot of the times that I go to games, it's because I want to spend the time with the person I'm bringing with me. And I don't sit close to the field at Gillette. I don't have the opportunity to do all these things. All right? And I'm fine with that. Go enjoy yourselves. But let's not be idiots. Let's not be dumb. Let's not do these things, because eventually it's just going to lead to a point of why the athletes are going to want to play in front of people. And I realize that it's very, very, very extreme, because ownership is never going to want to play with no fans because all of that revenue loss. And I get all that. Different story for a different day. But as of right now, the message is stop being an idiot. Stop touching the athlete. Stop throwing things. Stop doing all those things. Just go there to have fun. And for some people, having fun means drinking too much and doing stupid shit like this. Well, you don't get to go anymore. You don't get that. You've lost the right to do that. That's the punishment. And if people say, well, I paid good money and I can't do this. Nope, sorry, you had an opportunity. It was simple. You had the same opportunity as everyone else, and you screwed it up. Consequences for your actions. moving on to a more positive note. Please visit us at loftsidebantr.com. That's loftsidebantr.com. Loftsidebantr@gmail.com for any questions, concerns, comments. You want to argue with me and all this stuff about everything. Fine. I believe Georgia just beat Tennessee in overtime, 44-41. Look at that for a news flash. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, everything else. YouTube, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're there. I thank everybody for the time. I thank everything for that. And we'll visit you after week 2 is over. Have a good night.